Welcome to the Genesis Science Report. I'm David Rives, and coming up on tonight's show, we'll sit down for a conversation with paleobiology expert Joe Hubbard as we discuss the recent discovery of young collagen proteins found in dinosaur bones. We will also examine a new study claiming to have found evidence of a mass extinction event 250 million years ago. Text everyone you know right now and tell them to tune in to the Genesis Science Report because we've got a power-packed hour for you. Join us as we look at cutting-edge research and break down these discoveries from a biblical perspective. But first, water is essential for life, connecting all living beings. We drink it to survive. Our bodies are primarily composed of it, and it sustains the plants that provide oxygen and food. This vital resource nurtures ecosystems, it supports agriculture, and drives weather patterns, reminding us that we are all part of a shared, interconnected environment. Now, have you ever heard of the Great Divide? It serves as the geographic boundary separating the two largest bodies of water on the planet. It is the literal dividing line between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. And because they're separated, these two massive bodies of water might seem distinct. And yet they work together in a complex dance that profoundly influences the Earth's weather and water systems. And understanding this relationship offers insights into not only our planet's ecosystem, but also our spiritual connection to God Himself. At first glance, the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans appear to operate independently. The Atlantic, with its warmer and shallower waters, plays a crucial role in driving weather patterns on the eastern side of the Americas. Its warm waters influence the formation of storms and hurricanes, providing the necessary heat and the moisture that fuel these powerful systems. But in contrast, the Pacific Ocean, known for its immense depth and cooler temperatures, significantly impacts the climate of the western United States and beyond. It's home to phenomena such as El Niño and La Niña, which can lead to drastic changes in weather patterns across the globe. With different temperatures, depths, and even salinity levels, you may ask yourself, well, how are these two connected? Or even, why does it matter? Well, through a series of ocean currents and atmospheric systems. You see, the Gulf Stream, a powerful, warm ocean current originating in the Gulf, flows up the eastern coast of the United States and into the North Atlantic. This current carries warm water northward, affecting climate patterns and contributing to milder winters in Europe. And in parallel, if we go to the Pacific, the California current brings cooler waters down the western coast of North America, influencing weather and marine ecosystems. Now, the interactions between these oceans don't stop right at the coasts. Atmospheric phenomena like the jet stream act as a bridge carrying weather systems across the continent. When the warm, moist air from the Atlantic meets the cooler air from the Pacific, it can lead to the formation of storms or precipitation and varying climatic conditions. This cooperation illustrates how interconnected our world is, despite the physical barriers that separate different regions. You see, the Great Divide serves as a reminder that while we may perceive separation, there is a profound interdependence at work. The Atlantic and Pacific Oceans shape our climate. When we consider the mysteries in creation and how God has done such marvelous things, it brings us to a deeper understanding of our relationship with God. Much like the Great Divide, we may feel physically separated from God, existing in a world that often distracts us from the divine. However, we are created with a spiritual soul designed to connect with Him. Our souls long for that relationship, similar to how the oceans interact to create a balanced environment. And just as the currents and weather systems work together to sustain life on Earth, our daily walk and faith in Christ work together for the good of all humanity. In this light, our relationship with God becomes a source of strength and guidance. Just as the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, despite their separation, work in tandem to create a thriving ecosystem, we too can bridge the gap between our lives and our purpose by relying on God, who never fails. Ultimately, the lesson from the Great Divide teaches us to have perspective on God's design. By recognizing how two distinct oceans influence one another, we can apply this understanding to our relationship with God, realizing that He does have a plan for your life. And if you follow His calling, well, it might just impact and intersect with my life and the lives of millions of others. I'm David Rives, and this is the Genesis Science Report. Today we can just pick up our cell phone and call somebody across the world. Long before this, there were long-distance communications that have happened throughout history.
And you could see dozens of ships coming in that don't belong there. Light up that fire so that that can be seen miles away. If you're going to be defending against attackers, it's got to be able to pass the warning in a short amount of time.
On wonders without number. Friends of Genesis Science Network, we started this channel to make an impact in the lives of both Christians and inquiring skeptics around the world. It has done that in unbelievable ways. Now, one of our viewers wrote, "I've been watching your channel for nearly a week now, and I would like you to know the blessing that it's been to me. I've never had the finances or the opportunity to attend a university, but I've been a believer for the last 37 years. Your channel has done more for my understanding of my faith than any book I've read save the Bible, and I feel like I'm finally able to attend the lecture classes I've always wanted to. Thank you so much for your ministry." I want to thank you for your generous support. GSN is no simple project and requires monthly commitments to keep it on the air. Please consider becoming a partner with us today. Just call 931-212-7990 or click Give on our website. We are making a difference. I'm David Rives, and you're watching the Genesis Science Network. And welcome back to the show. Let's go ahead and dive right in to our Genesis Science Q&A. This week's submission comes to us courtesy of Rudy on YouTube. He asks, if evolution isn't real, well, please explain how Noah was able to bring males and females of over 1 million species aboard and enough food and water to sustain them. Thanks for the question, Rudy. We have to remember what the Bible actually tells us about different creatures in the past. God created animals according to their kind. Now, a study called baraminology, or created kinds, the study of created kinds, would indicate that we're breaking animals down at almost the family level. You mentioned in your question species, but that's where it gets awry. While there are millions upon millions, countless of millions of species of different animals, there are only a few thousand basic kinds of animals or families of animals. Even in modern taxonomic considerations, we can break things down in family and genus, and we can see that there are only a few thousand basic body types and types of animals. That means that Noah did not have to take one of every species or two of every species. He would have had to take representatives of each basic kind of animal. In other words, a few thousand animals, which is 100% doable when we're talking about a boat that is over 500 feet long, 3 levels stacked from top to bottom, with only a small portion of it designated to human living space. It is 100% possible, 100% plausible, and 100% recorded in history. So therefore, we have to think differently about these types of questions and get back to real scientific data, which is pointing us back to God's Word. Now, if you have a question that you'd like me to answer, you can share it with us on social media or by emailing right now comments@genesissciencenetwork.com. Now, Noah's Ark and the Genesis flood is a subject that we are constantly receiving questions about. This week's featured resource is perfect for those who want to learn more about what details are actually revealed in the Bible concerning Noah's Ark. It's called Inside Noah's Ark: Why It Worked by Laura Welsh and Tim Chafee. And this book goes beyond simply retelling the story of Noah's Ark. It delves into the practical aspects of how the ark could have functioned as a real working vessel. The authors tackle some of the most common questions and criticisms about the ark's viability. Questions like, well, how did Noah and his family manage fresh water and waste removal for those thousands of animals? And how could just 8 people have cared for so many creatures? The authors explore fascinating possibilities, drawing on ancient technologies like bamboo pipes and cisterns and gears and animal-powered machines. But it's not just about proving the biblical account, it's about understanding the ingenuity and the resourcefulness involved and appreciating the complexity of this legendary feat. You can find your copy of Inside Noah's Ark at the Creation Superstore by visiting creationsuperstore.com. All right, guys, do you know what this is that I am holding? Check this out. This is what is called a horseshoe crab, and they are quite the amazing creature. The horseshoe part of the name comes from the shape of the front shell, which looks a lot like the shape of a horseshoe when you look at it from this direction. But despite the name, the horseshoe crab is not a member of the crab family, and it really isn't a crab. You see, true crabs are crustaceans, but believe it or not, horseshoe crabs are actually more similar to arachnids like scorpions, spiders, and ticks, even though you can hold a living horseshoe crab and it does not bite or sting. One of the most amazing features of the horseshoe crab is the fact that they have bright blue blood, unlike our own red blood. Now, why is our blood red and the horseshoe crab's blood is blue? We see the red in our blood is caused by the presence of iron-based hemoglobin. Now, that helps transport oxygen throughout our body. But the blood of a horseshoe crab has something that is copper-based. That's what actually gives it this strong blue color that we find within this organism. But even more amazing than the blue color is a substance within the blood called limulus ambiocyte lysate. We call it LAL for short. That's a lot simpler to pronounce for sure. So this LAL has an amazing quality to it. It can actually reveal when bacterial endotoxins are present. So it's used in a wide variety of medical applications, even to test the sterility of medical instruments that might be used in a surgery. The presence of any bacterial endotoxins will cause immediate clotting, and it's all because of this LAL. So actually, the blue horseshoe crab blood is so valuable that the blood of these creatures, the going value could be even $60,000 for a single gallon. But that sounds bad. I mean, won't it lead to the extinction of the horseshoe crab? Well, not at all. What happens to the horseshoe crab after the blood is extracted is the same as humans who give blood. You only take a small amount, and if it's done the right way, the creature continues its normal life. Now, the one that I've been holding measured about 9 inches long, but they can be a lot bigger. This guy is around 17 inches long, and they can even be as long as 22 inches. Now, horseshoe crabs are yet another incredible example of the amazing design and handiwork of God and the benefits to mankind of those designs. You know, these are one of the most commonly cited examples of a living fossil because we find these things in the fossil record, and believe it or not, even their brain looks identical to the brains of modern-day horseshoe crabs. Now, when we get back from the break, we will explore a groundbreaking discovery in the world of paleontology: collagen, found in dinosaur bones that are supposedly millions of years old. I'll be joined by an expert in the field of paleobiochemistry, Joseph Hubbard, in England, to discuss how this discovery challenges evolutionary theories and what it means for our understanding of Earth's historical timeline. Next on The Report. Do you pray for your family to know Christ? Do you pray for your country?
In the 900s, some very amazing things were happening in Russia. She was a very cruel, action-oriented woman. Her name was Olga. She took a visit to Constantinople. To make a long story short, she became a Christian, a real Christian. She came back completely different person.
On Wonders Without Number. We know that you want to have a deep faith in the Lord and to witness to those around you. To do that, you need tools and information to strengthen your faith using scientific discoveries that prove the Bible to be true. The problem is that atheists using evolutionary theories claim that they've refuted the Bible's accuracy. What's worse, the real facts are censored. If you don't have a PhD in science, you're often left feeling helpless when trying to defend your faith. But you need to be equipped to know the truth. For that reason, over the past 13 years, we've become the most trusted name in biblical scientific research, interfacing with nearly every top Christian organization in existence to distill and give you the true facts as they support your faith in Christ. Sign up for our weekly emails and free bi-monthly magazine. Consider becoming a partner with us as we reach the world with the truth of the Bible and the gospel message. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. Is there such a thing as a sure proof that God is real, that creation is true, and that we can believe the Bible?
We have a fixed amount of energy and matter in this universe. But if the universe had a beginning, naturally, everything had to have come from nothing.
Wow.
Which is the most immense violation of the first law that you could imagine.
On Wonders Without Number. Welcome back to the Genesis Science Report. Tonight we're delving into a recent paleontological discovery where scientists were surprised to find collagen in dinosaur bones that are supposedly millions of years old. The problem is that this protein typically degrades over a very short period of time, and yet the claim is that it has persisted in these fossils for tens of millions of years. Now, this raises some intriguing questions about the age of these samples and how their presence aligns with the historical record found in the biblical account. Joining us for this discussion is Joseph Hubbard, an international speaker, writer, and the director of Creation Research UK. Joe's work in paleobiochemistry provides valuable insight into how such discoveries can actually reshape our view on creation, biology, and even the age of the Earth. He oversees Creation Research's Global Museum Project and has been involved in academia for the last 10 years. Joe, it's great to have you back on the show.
It's good to be back with you. I'm looking forward to being able to get into this paper with you, but it's always a joy to be on the show.
I can't wait to dive into this. Listen, let's jump right in, because did researchers really find collagen in these ancient bones? I mean, shouldn't it have all been decayed after millions of years? And what methods do scientists use to identify this collagen?
Okay, well, this is very quickly becoming my area of expertise, right? Because this is what I've been studying for the past few years. First question, has collagen really been found? Collagen is a sort of a fibrous type protein. It's a soft, squidgy thing, right? It's a principal component of bone. We often think of bones as hard, brittle stuff, but they're full of soft, squidgy stuff as well. Well, have we really found it? I have a dinosaur bone here. In fact, I think I've brought this on the show before, and you can see we've drilled a hole in it. Now that's been drilled deliberately, and we've actually even published on this bone now, 2 different publications in fact, which I have here, in which we've identified collagen using mass spectrometry. Now this is going a step further than like grinding it up and putting it underneath a microscope, but with over 150 published reports now from secular scientific literature, we really do have conclusive evidence that collagen has been found. Now you touched on this, David, because collagen is soft and squidgy, and these are what we call original biomolecules. They're originally belonging to the creature, they're still in the bone, and they should have decayed after just a few thousand years at the absolute most. So this problem of how do we get soft squidgy stuff left inside dinosaur bones is something that's really been challenging researchers for a long time, because it simply shouldn't be there if it's millions of years old. And of course that's where this paper comes in. Now, you showed the press release, right? The press release made a few sweeping statements, right? Researchers have concluded that we've found the answer as to how this stuff actually survives. The original paper is a little bit more complex. You can actually see all the diagrams and all the squiggles. So we're not going to be able to get into too much detail in the time that we have, but in essence the argument is that they've been able to use some principles of organic chemistry, particularly the way that water bonds together, and they've argued that this explains how you can have soft squidgy stuff like collagen survive for millions of years. Now, I'm very quickly becoming a sort of expert in this field, but the one thing which I'm not an expert in yet is organic chemistry. So I make no bones about it. I've deferred to one of my colleagues from Canada, who's been a professor of organic chemistry. And when we first heard about this paper, we sent it to him for a few comments. And what's been interesting, Professor Ed Neeland is his name. You can look him up. He sent us a whole list of rather serious problems with the organic chemistry itself, as in the arguments that they're using is a little bit faulty. Let me just share one example with you. You see, the paper says this carbonyl oxygen has a pair of electrons that don't form bonds with any other atoms. Now, you may not understand the implication of the science there, right? It's a bit technical, but listen to what Professor Ed says. He says this is simply not true. Even isolating the molecule with the carbonyl group, like acetone for example, the electrons on the carbonyl oxygen resonate with the carbon atom, forming bonds. This is the very basic of organic chemistry. Now, you may not understand the terms there, but the point is they've got some very basic organic chemistry wrong, according to a professor of organic chemistry. So there's a number of issues with what they're actually trying to argue here, even on the face of this paper. It actually gets worse if you want to go a bit deeper. You see, the main researcher is quoted as saying, collagen is all triple helices from one end to the other. There's no weak link, and that's why I think it has survived. Now, you may pick up the I think there. You notice how they're not quite definite? Well, as Ed Neeland has basically said, 200 million years is a very long time, and I will guarantee you that hydrolysis will make mincemeat out of 99% of anything in that time, including all the rocks. In other words, from Ed Neeland's perspective, professor of organic chemistry, it is ludicrous to suggest that any kind of organic chemistry can actually preserve these rocks. In fact, he concludes like this. He says, this is a rather poor attempt to use chemistry to buttress their faith system in deep time. I certainly wouldn't want to defend it publicly. So, yeah, there's a few issues with this paper, and it really doesn't actually answer this question of why are these things still here after millions of years? It's interesting when you think about it.
Yeah, it very much is interesting because even the abstract, even the public, the public published layman's level article, it says that this is mysterious. It uses the word mysterious. And it even admits, it says collagen's persistence is perplexing because the protein contains chemical bonds that should only last 500 years. And yet, then it goes on to say, somehow it lasted for millions and millions and millions. But this turning on this interaction to prevent hydrolysis or breaking down chemicals via water, you're saying that according to chemists, it's not strong enough to really make this perpetuate for tens of millions of years.
We're certainly dealing with a strong bond here, and there is some good science in there, but they've made some very basic errors with organic chemistry, but then they're arguing, even with their basic errors, they're still arguing for something that is impossible, right? There is always going to be a weak point, no matter how strong your bonds are, and over millions of years, it is simply going to break down, and you're still going to destroy it. In fact, the world expert on ancient collagen, a guy called Dr. Michael Buckley from the University of Manchester here in the UK, his quote is, "There is less than 1% chance of less than 1% collagen remaining in less than 1 million years." Now, the lessers are there to hedge his bets, right? But the reality is, given everything we know about the decay of collagen, the half-life of collagen, the shelf life of collagen, there should be no collagen in this bone after 1 million years. And yet here we have a bone that is supposedly, well, in this particular bone, it's supposed to be around 130 million years old. And yet it's full of collagen. And it's not just full of collagen, by the way, it's full of collagen that we can sequence. In other words, the collagen is in good enough quality to actually perform something called proteomics, which is not quite reading DNA, but it's reading the marks that DNA has left on the collagen, on the protein, right? So it's not just collagen or fragments of collagen, it's collagen that's good enough to be able to read. Now that's remarkable. We get archaeological stuff that isn't that well preserved. So it stands as a testimony to two things. Number one, this has been brilliantly preserved. It hasn't laid around for hundreds of thousands of years slowly waiting to be buried. It's been buried quickly, it's been buried rapidly, and it's been buried in a flood, no doubt about it. You can tell that by the rest of the fossils, that it's buried with seashells and the like, right? Drowned dinosaurs. But secondly, no matter how hard you may try and argue using very complex organic chemistry, and no matter what sweeping statements the press release says, we still have not found an answer to how this collagen could last for millions of years. Everything within organic chemistry, and that was the point that Professor Ed made earlier, everything in organic chemistry tells us that time will simply destroy your collagen within just a few thousand years. So we still have very conclusive evidence that these bones are not millions of years old. They are in fact young. And of course that fits quite nicely with the biblical history of events. A recent creation 6,000 to 10,000 years ago and a global flood that buried all this stuff very quickly and very efficiently.
Well, now you and I were recently in Anaheim at the American Society of Mass Spectrometry, looking at liquid chromatography mass spectrometry.
I was actually presenting this paper there, so
exactly. So you've done a tremendous amount of research in this, but you know, collagen is not the only thing that is found in these samples, and certainly not the only thing that secular science reports are showing has been found. We're talking about osteocytes and proteins and even stretchy blood vessels in some circumstances. Yeah. Is that correct?
And nerve cells, and like, you know, we hear like osteocytes and stuff and blood cells and stuff, right? We're talking basically the soft squidgy parts of bone. Remember, bone is not just hard. There's soft squidgy stuff in there as well. And so bone cells are not just hard, you know, calcium structures like we might think of them, but they're actually living, you know, soft material. So just be wary, you know, soft tissue is a lovely layman's term, but soft tissue can also mean soft tissue that has turned to rock. Yeah. What we're dealing with here is not soft tissue remains as in preserved or calcified or anything like that. We're dealing with what we call original biomolecules, the original soft squidgy stuff preserved in the bone. The bone hasn't turned to stone. The bone has been permineralized, completely encased and encapsulated with minerals, and the soft squidgy stuff is still there. Now, this is really, really, truly significant, and I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek into our next research bit, David. We've got the data, we're just writing it up now for secular publication, but we've been able to not only find a Jurassic crocodilian bone, which is supposedly 200 million years old, we have found collagen in it, we have sequenced the collagen in it, and we have matched that collagen in a database with 3 different modern-day crocodiles. In other words, A, no evolution, B, soft tissue shouldn't be there, but C, well, this is evidence for what we call endogeneity. In other words, this crocodilian collagen inside this fossil crocodilian collagen, actually matches with modern-day crocodiles. So that's really, really significant, and hopefully we'll have some publications on that out about that very shortly.
So, Joe, this is basically, I mean, we're talking about we're really close to actually being able to show sequencing of some of these things, and that's almost Jurassic Park type. You know, what we think of when we think of the movies of Jurassic Park. But what it's showing is that crocodilian creatures in the past are extremely similar, identical in many ways to crocodiles that we have today.
Yeah, so there's no evolution at all, right? They're protein. So we did this crocodile vertebrae sequencing. We then run the protein sequence. We got 41 protein sequences, if you're interested. We ran that through a protein database, and it came up with 4 matches. So the 4 matches were the American alligator, the Chinese alligator, the Australian saltwater crocodile, and the leopard gecko. In other words, 4 of the matches, out of the 4 matches, 3 of those matches were crocodilian, all of them were reptilian, so there's similarity within reptiles. But the fact that out of the 4 matches, 3 of them were crocodilian tells you that, okay, yes, they haven't evolved, they're very, very similar, and this is supposed to be 200 million years old, but that's not that unusual. We've known that crocodiles aren't supposed to evolve for 200 million years for a long while, right? But the significance is the fact that, well, this is a fossil bone from Peterborough in England. We don't have many crocodiles in Peterborough in England, right? And the equipment that we tested this on has never been tested using any reptile collagen before. In other words, the chance of contamination, or this being the result of contamination, is basically 0, right? It can't come from the wild, it can't come from the equipment, and so we're actually seeing really good evidence for endogeneity, the fact that this is indeed collagen from this bone. It's not contamination, it's not a bacterial microfilm or anything like that, because it's crocodilian for sure, and we've been able to sequence it and match it with crocodiles around the world. So stay tuned, hopefully that'll be published soon, but again, it's just more evidence that you can trust the Bible and that indeed the world is not millions of years old, and in fact you can go one step further because it's evidence that they haven't evolved either.
Incredible. I'm telling you what, breaking research is so exciting, and we want to thank you for being such an integral part of it. Joe, I cannot wait to see you again in person, and I can't wait to have you back on the show to share more. All right, don't go anywhere. We will be right back with Viewer Voices after the break. The work of his hands. Let's look at photography of the Earth from space with a NASA astronaut.
We orbit the Earth 16 times a day. My cumulative time in space is 534 days, so I'll let you do the math.
Wow.
But what the message we hear, there's absolutely no conflict between science and scripture.
Absolutely. On Wonders Without Number.
Join us at the Wonder Center and Science Museum for this month's Unwrapped event, where we feature expert speakers presenting scientific and biblical discoveries.
It pays to learn history, folks.
We cannot create an aircraft even close to what these birds can do.
This changes the way we do biology.
Discounted tickets are available for an after-hours adventure, including museum admission with kids' hands-on activities, a planetarium movie, Tesla experience, and pre-show entertainment. Perfect for the whole family.
What you believe about the history of the world is going to affect the way that you study the world today.
You see a mathematical order here. You see the orthogonal lines. You see the repeating patterns.
You don't understand what it takes to make a cell. That's serious engineering.
Come be inspired as you learn. The evening presentation is free, but seating is extremely limited, so RSVP immediately at wondercenter.org.
Today on Wonders Without Number, I want to tell you there are some areas of history that we will go through where we will show you that the reason you are on Earth at this moment is absolutely no coincidence.
So if William the Conqueror had not fathered Henry Beauclerk after surviving the Battle of Hastings, there would have been no George Washington, and America as we know it would not have happened.
On Wonders Without Number. And And welcome back to The Report. It is time for this week's Viewer Voices. Our first entry is from Cindy on Facebook. She says, this ministry consistently provides cutting-edge information with entertaining examples and professionals that back creation by God alone. This is so needed today. Thank you so much, Sydney, for that. I cannot wait to share these reports with you every week, as well as to provide that cutting-edge scientific data that is, again, encouraging each and every one of us as Christians. Now, our next comment came from the Malm family after visiting the Wonder Center. They said, we had no idea this place existed prior to our field trip, and it is safe to say that we loved it. This museum is clean, the staff is friendly, and everything is just so well done. We've been to the Ark twice and once to the Creation Museum, and we still learn so much. There are lots of hands-on activities for all ages, and the shows are worth paying extra for. We would definitely go back. Thank you. I think you're referring to the planetarium shows. Yeah, the planetarium shows are also world-class, and we would love to thank the Institute for Creation Research for their tremendous work on those planetarium shows, as well as taking us deep into space, past galaxies and planets, and really showing how the heavens declare the glory of God. Now, we always appreciate feedback from our visitors at the museum and from the viewers watching right now. So please keep sharing your experiences with us on social media and also by emailing us at comments@genesissciencenetwork.com. Now, coming up, we have some really exciting ministry updates to share. But first, let's take a minute to examine a conundrum that evolution has struggled to answer. So if the oceans have been around for billions of years, why can't we find evidence of 3 billion years worth of salt? Let's take a look right now. Geologic evolution teaches that the first oceans were formed around 3 billion years ago. Scientists recognize that every year millions of tons of salt makes its way into the ocean. But where's the 3 billion years worth of salt? It's nowhere to be found. According to the Bible, the seas were created in the beginning around 6,000 years ago. When we consider that timeline and the effects of flood erosion, the current measurements are consistent with biblical history. The idea of billions of years fails to explain what we observe in our present world. Empirical science is clearly showing us that there are grave problems with the unproven theories of evolution. Just one more scientific reason that you shouldn't believe in geological evolution. It takes a lot of faith. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.
For more information, visit David Rives Ministries at davidrives.com. davidrives.com.
We are back again with another ministry report and more exciting news to share from the Wonder Center. First up, I recently returned from the Tucson Fossil Show, which provided a unique opportunity to connect with fellow enthusiasts, share the wonders of God's creation, and engage in conversations about the evidence for a young Earth and the compatibility of faith and science. Now, we witnessed firsthand the power of engaging with others and sharing our ministry's message through conversations, discovery, and a shared love of science. Plus, I picked up some really nice new pieces for display that you'll just have to come see at the museum yourself. Looking ahead, I'll be traveling to Dallas for the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. This year's convention is shaping up to be a can't-miss event for Christian communicators working in radio or in TV, film, and church media. And every year I look forward to the dozens of meetings, the radio and TV interviews, and connecting with my fellow colleagues in the Christian broadcasting community. On another note, here at the ministry, we recently hit a significant benchmark. We have surpassed 45,000 YouTube subscribers, and we are grateful for everyone who engaged with our content, subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing our videos. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, go ahead and subscribe and click the bell notifications, because there are many more videos like this coming out every single week. And not just you're subscribing to the channel, not just you following us on social media, but your support helps amplify this message of hope as we educate, inspire, and reach people across the globe with the transformative power of the gospel. Our unique ministry is having an impact that is making a difference, and I want to say that you can make a difference with us. And I'm inviting you to partner with us right now by making a tax-deductible contribution. Call the number on the bottom of the screen or visit our website on your phone right now and hit the donate button. Whether it's $5 a month or $5,000, get involved in this crucial work today. You're not only keeping this program on the air with your support, you are providing millions of people with the truth of creation science and God's love. Thank you. And now it's time for this week's The Heavens Declare. Tonight we're looking at how geckos have remained virtually unchanged throughout the fossil record, a testament to the enduring complexity and timeless purpose in God's design. Let's take a look right now. Certain types of geckos have millions of tiny little pads on the bottom of their feet, which allows them to walk effortlessly on vertical surfaces, even on glass. But a few years ago, startling discoveries were made within the scientific community. In Myanmar, a gecko's foot was found encased and preserved in a piece of amber. So the labs studying these remains gave them an approximate date of about 100 million years old. Wow. But here's where it gets interesting. You see, the gecko foot was virtually identical to what we see in modern day geckos. So if we were to put that in perspective, looking at another group of animals, for instance mammals, well, according to evolutionary theory, the vast majority of mammals all evolved within the last 250 million years. Every variety of mammal seen on Earth, from the bat to the giraffe. One creature just evolving into the next. But that means that according to Darwinian evolution, a supposed 250 million year period of evolution brought us all of the variety that we see in mammals today. And yet, they would expect us to believe that a supposed 100 million years ago, the gecko's foot was just as incredibly complex as we see today. Not one bit of evolution. So there are rescuing devices for these theories, because some people would claim that it's an example of stasis. They would say, you see, this gecko was just so well designed that it didn't need to evolve over the last 100 million years. But I think that there's a lot of evidence for design in the gecko, and that this little guy is just another amazing example of God's creation, fully formed with complex feet that points us back to our Creator. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. After the break, we will explore a new theory about one of Earth's greatest extinctions and the ongoing search for answers. Is mainstream science missing something very crucial? Russ Miller, founder of Creation, Evolution, and Science Ministries, will break it all down for us, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm David Rives, and I'm inviting you to visit the Creation Superstore, the largest Origins-related store in the world. Not only will you find every book and video title on creation versus evolution, science, but also every resource that teaches us about our origin and how it all takes us back to Genesis, a grand designer, the God of the Bible, and ultimately, yes, the gospel message. Documentaries your family can trust, fossils, teaching videos, children's books, church Bible studies, homeschool supplements, and expert scientific literature. If you can't find a title, call us up and we'll add it. Normally, you'd have to visit dozens of sites to gain access to all of the titles that are out there, and then you would be at a loss to whether the book or video was worth the purchase. But not here. We've curated the best of the best into top 10 lists. And on some of my favorite products, you'll find the Rives rating, where I help guide you on the best resources available for not only those who love history, biblical studies, and creation science, but also great products at the layman level, easy to understand for those who are learning or want their children and grandchildren to be exposed to a biblical worldview. Just look for the Rives rating to find my personal favorites. Use the search bar to look up a topic or follow our menu to sort by ministry, subject, or author. Give us a call at 931-212-7990 as you're browsing. We have ministry volunteers who will do their best to assist you at all hours of the day and even help you place your order. Yes, a real person. Get ready for a secure shopping experience brought to you by the leaders of creation-based research. Your purchase goes towards ministry outreach and also supports the authors and organizations who publish the material, most of whom are personal friends and colleagues of mine. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God. Welcome back to The Report. Tonight, we're taking a closer look at the latest breakthrough that's supposedly been making waves in the scientific community. A new study suggests that a climate phenomenon known as El Nino was somehow responsible for one of the planet's largest extinctions, the Permian-Triassic event, often referred to as the Great Dying. According to some researchers, these extreme climate fluctuations triggered by El Nino wreaked havoc on ecosystems, wiping out more than 90% of life on Earth. Now, while this might sound like a fascinating new twist to the extinction narrative, we've got some serious reservations. After all, mainstream science has been pushing the idea of evolution and natural catastrophes like volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts as explanations for mass extinctions. But the question we have to ask is, do these claims really align with the evidence, or are we seeing yet another attempt to explain away a global catastrophe, like the flood of Genesis, through some type of a naturalistic lens? Joining us for this discussion is Russ Miller. After amassing 174 college credits, Russ began a nationwide business while building custom homes on the side. He walked away from it all in 2000 to begin Creation, Evolution, and Science Ministries and has authored 5 books, led thousands of people on his Grand Canyon tours. He shared with churches, conferences, colleges, television programs, and podcasts, always encouraging folks to believe the Bible word for word and cover to cover. I love it. Russ, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, David, how are you doing? It's great to be with you again.
I am doing fantastic. Listen, number one, before we get into this study, which, by the way, it says an ancient underwater event wiped out more than 90% of life, which immediately I'm thinking, wow, the flood. And it goes on to say, and it wasn't a tsunami.
That's right.
Let's talk about environmentalism for a second. I want to briefly zoom out and look at the environmentalism movement as a whole, because, I mean, we've been hearing all these claims about climate change since the 1970s, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's all been a big scare tactic, and it still is today. Now, let's go back to the 1970s. I remember that first big scare tactic was global freezing. The globe was going to freeze within 10 years. Crops were wiped out. Everyone was going to starve to death. And you know, David, what was their response? What was the way to save the planet? Destroy the U.S. economy. Now that was back in the 70s. Let's see, in the 1980s, it became acid rain. Acid rain in the 1980s. You won't believe what their answer to the problem was. Want to take a guess? Destroy the U.S. economy. See, after that became, and you know, the problem they had is they hadn't been indoctrinating kids through the school systems in the 70s. Now they started, but in acid rain got a little traction, but not much. But they kept indoctrinating generation after generation of kids. And finally, in the 1990s, when they came up with the hole in the ozone. Do you remember the hole in the ozone?
I do.
And they actually now were getting enough people on board because they've been, teaching this through the school systems. And in the 1990s, they did actually outlaw Freon. And it turned out Freon had nothing to do with anything, but it made the eco-terrorists feel good because they outlawed something. And then they found that didn't work. But again, the answer would have been to save the ozone was to destroy the U.S. economy.
Right.
So then we got into the 2000s, and you know the story there. Then it was global warming and destroy the U.S. economy to save the world. And now we're into climate change. And again, you have to destroy the U.S. economy to save everything. But the fact of the matter is, they just keep coming up with something new. And the answer is always an attack on the freedoms in the United States. And try to get us that.
Yeah, and Russ, you know, it's incredible that, like you said, it's never, well, let's go shut down the factories in China. No, it's let's shut down all production in the U.S. and we're going to solve this climate change conundrum that we're under. Let's just remove fossil fuels from the equation, let everybody go electric, make everyone go electric, shut down all of our airfare and all of that. But you know what? Russia can still do what they want to do. China can still do what they want to do. Everyone else can still do what they want to do. But somehow we alone have the power, as long as we just destroy our own nation, to solve this climate crisis.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's just a global power play, and it's about controlling and enslaving people. And the U.S., with the greatest freedoms any group has had in the history of the world, and us trying to project freedom around the globe, we're obviously going to be the #1 target. If they can destroy the U.S., and you know they've taken a pretty good run at it over the last 20 years. Right now, we're in a period of time where it looks like we're going to be coming back, but they're after us, and they're not going to let up. This is at the base level, it's a war between Satan and God that started about 6,000 years ago in the Garden of Eden, and it will continue until Jesus returns and reclaims his creation.
Yeah, Russ, you mentioned that, you know, maybe it's going to turn around just a little bit for a few years' time. Again, it might, but it's not if we as Christians just sit idly by and we don't use this period of time to stand up for what's right, to push back against this naturalistic ideology that's been forced upon academia, that's been forced upon young children, that's been basically taking over our media. And now that we have this new report, and again, it's not really a new report in the sense that it's just one more iteration of the same thing, I find it's almost biblical the way they phrase this. So Russ, they say an ancient underwater event wiped out more than 90% of life, and it wasn't a tsunami. But then they go on to say, around 250 million years ago, where did the number come from? A mass extinction event wiped out more than 90% of life, and it all began with water. Wow.
Exactly. Well, you know this, but a lot of people don't realize, David, even in Christian circles, that the global flood is a linchpin in the war of worldviews. Yeah. See, they're getting their 250 million years from the geologic column or time scale invented about 220 years ago, based on the belief that the strata that make up the crust of the earth, those stratified layers, didn't form quickly in the global flood, but formed slowly at today's rates over millions of years of time without a flood, which, by the way, is foretold in 2 Peter 3:3-6, that in the last days, non-believers would claim uniform processes and deny the global flood, just like they do today. And anyways, they get that 250 million years from where in the column, the geologic column, those layers are found. The 250 million years, it's interesting. Someone sent me a package of rock salt a couple of months ago. And on the back of the label, it said, according to the geologic column, the rock salt is 250 million years old. And at the bottom of the package, it said it expires this coming June. So I thought, wow, we got it just in the nick of time. But those old age dates don't come from isotope dating. They come from the column. And that's where the old Earth beliefs come from, based on belief in denial of the flood.
That's a circular reasoning, isn't it, Russ?
Well, I know you've probably explained this to folks a million times, but in case someone's listening that doesn't know the difference in operational science, real science, a believer's best friend, over 80% of the branches of modern science started by Christians, but there's historical science. Now, operational science is knowledge derived from the testing, study of repeatable evidence. That's real science. Historical science are assumptions taken from taking operational events you can observe today and applying those to past non-observed events based on the beliefs in uniformitarianism and denial of the global flood. Well, that's where the geologic column, it's all historical science. Anything that was not observed, that's historical science. So if they go 10,000 years ago or 1,000,000 years ago or 1,000,000,000 years ago, that's historical science. So the geologic column and its accuracy is all based on accepting today's rates have always been the same and there was never a global flood. So that's where they came up with their 250 million years. But I was just saying, I got a kick out of this new theory because they managed to fit global warming, acid rain, and loss of the ozone and more, all of their little eco-friendly theories over the last 50 years into this one article. I just got a kick out of that. I thought that was pretty creative on their part.
It really is, and it shows just how far they're willing to push this agenda. And yet, throughout all of the article, there are these clues where they're trying to back up because they know that you're going to be a little bit cautious of this. They say, well, you know what? You're probably thinking that it must have been a tsunami. Well, wow, it does sound like it if you're talking about a massive watery event. And then they go on to say, oh, but another event could have played a pivotal role. And so therefore, it's all global warming's fault. But they say basically the climate was all over the place, and that makes it hard for species to adapt. Now, we wouldn't debate that the climate has been all over the place. We wouldn't debate that the global flood would have caused massive amounts of climate change, rapid climate change. But it wasn't because of humans' effect on the earth. Instead, that climate change was a result of God's judgment, wasn't it?
Exactly. In fact, they're sort of undermining their present day arguments that say global warming, acid rain, and loss of ozone was man caused, when now they're trying to, I don't think they realize, but trying to fit those beliefs into their theory from supposedly 250 million years ago, which according to them was long before they were humans, means there was acid rain and loss of the ozone and global warming long before humans came along. I don't think they actually realized that they were actually refuting everything they've been teaching.
Absolutely. Well, Russ, we really appreciate you. I would encourage everyone to go check out his website, go with him to the Grand Canyon on one of his amazing tours as he breaks these things down incredibly simply, but at the same time, in such a way that you realize that everything is connecting back to biblical history and ultimately to the gospel message. Russ Miller, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Oh, thank you, David. Good to speak with you again.
Absolutely. And that is it for today. I want to thank you for joining us on the Genesis Science Report. And until next week, keep looking up. I'm David Rives. Truly, the heavens declare the glory of God.